Before we go any further into the Firebird story, go ahead and hit that like button. It lets us know that we're doing a good job. And apparently, it helps crack the YouTube algorithm. And I love cracking algos. It's the muscle car your cool uncle drove when he wasn't in jail. The fire-breathing, tire-burning highway ripper from Smokey and the Bandit. From its humble pony car origins to the airbrushed phoenix of the 70s to this. What happened? This is everything you need to know to get up to speed on the Pontiac Firebird. Ah!
Thank you to Keeps for sponsoring today's video. Hair loss has been eradicated on Earth. But in a universe where 2 out of 3 guys experience some form of male pattern baldness by the time they're 35, we're on a mission to tackle universal hair loss. For we are
Astro Keeps.
We've arrived on planet Ebulonte, Captain.
Doc Mop Topperson, report.
Oceans are clean, atmosphere is breathable, parking is front and only. Paradise.
Access granted.
The ambassador is ready to meet with us, Captain.
Thank you, Officer Hawk. Junior Officer Tips, send us down. Oh gosh, never mind, I'll handle it.
The volcano at the heart of our planet is going to erupt. It's catastrophic to our species.
Dang, we should really do something.
Hey, Doc Mop, why don't you let him know about our secret weapon?
You got it, Captain. Keeps offers clinically proven, research-backed treatments to stop hair loss. Homegrown hair plus expert care without having to travel the stars for a doctor's office or pharmacy.
I mean, that sounds incredible, but the volcano.
Great work, Captain. The aliens' long, flowing locks formed a net to keep the volcano magma at bay.
That's textbook, baby. Just like they taught us at the academy.
How can we thank you, Starship Follicle?
The warmth of your gratitude is thank you. Now, hold on, wait 1 second. Does your planet have gold?
No, I don't think so.
Well, then the warmth of your gratitude is thank you enough. Start your hair loss prevention today by going to keeps.com/uptospeed50 or by clicking the link in the description to receive 50% off your first order. And check back for another adventure of
Astro Keeps.
It's the late 60s and everybody's obsessed with muscle. Muscle cars, muscle rockets, and muscles in a white wine butter sauce. A young Pontiac executive by the name of John DeLorean, yes, that John DeLorean, shoves a honkin' V8 in the mid-size Le Mans, calls it the GTO package, and changes the course of American car history forever. He was like, kids are gonna love this. And he was dead right. DeLorean not only turned Pontiac's boring image completely around overnight, he proved that young people wanted fast cars. Imagine that. Ring, 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 ring. Duh, department. Pontiac was arguably the first to do this exciting car market with the GTO, if you don't count the Oldsmobile Rocket 88. But this muscle party got crowded pretty quick. Ford came out with the Mustang, even though it's arguable that that might not be a muscle car, it's a pony car. Plymouth made the Barracuda, and Dodge flanked with the Polara, Dart, and the Coronet. But it was really the Mustang that concerned GM. They watched year after year as Mustang sales exploded. They sold a ton of these. In 1966, Ford sold a record-breaking 600,000 Mustangs in a market that DeLorean and GM had basically invented, and now they're at the risk of losing their own market. They needed a new car. Taking down the Mustang was a tall order, but John DeLorean was a tall guy, and he doesn't take defeat very easily, all right? GM wanted Chevy of Chase fame to be the one to steal the crown from Ford. But DeLorean wouldn't hear of it. He tried to convince the higher-ups at GM that Pontiac would be the one to make a Mustang killer, but GM was adamant that Chevy are the guys to do it. And in the end, the guys in the Pontiac division were able to convince GM to let Pontiac design their own car based on the F-Body Nova alongside the new project dubbed the Camaro, with the hopes that GM could flood this new market with cheap, fast cars. With the okay, the Pontiac team got to work designing a sister car for the Camaro. For design influence, they looked back to a concept car from a few years earlier called the GMX, X stands for experimental. If you have an E in there, you're not even experimenting, all right? This prototype debuted at the 1964 New York World's Fair, and people freaking loved it. It blew their minds. You guess who else loved it? GM employees, that's who loved it too. Pontiac was like, hey, what if we made that car that we all loved from a few years ago? And they got to work on a new prototype with elements from the GMX, like the split nostril grille and taillights inspired by the GTO, as well as the classic Coke bottle shape of that area. Skinny waist, long hood, absolutely yoked in the rear. I'm talking thick haunches. To differentiate it from the Camaro, they added an integrated front bumper, which, you know, just made it look more sleek. Now, the people at Pontiac weren't holding their breath that this thing would actually make it to market. All right, they'd been burned before by Uncle GM. Talking about the Pontiac XP833, AKA the Banshee. Does it look familiar? Looks like a third-gen Corvette, right? That's because this prototype was finished in 1964, and execs at GM found out it was gonna have equivalent horsepower to the Corvette, but be 500 pounds lighter and quicker to 60 miles per hour. And they were like, no, can't have that. And they told John DeLorean to immediately stop working on what he was calling the Mustang Fighter. Now, the Corvette is GM's flagship sports coupe, meaning nothing else they offered could outperform it, period, all right? Sales 101, look at Porsche. So understandably, DeLorean and the Pontiac team were straight up, I'll say it, man, they were peeved. Here they had designed and built a full working prototype that, if it had actually gone to market, would have absolutely smoked the Mustang, but they made it too good and ended up having to hand their design over to the Chevy team. They watched as their hard work went to market as the third-gen Corvette, which is a class above the Mustang. But now, Pontiac had a platform and a design that were in final stages of development. GM was concerned that the new project was gonna be indistinguishable from the Camaro. So John DeLorean spent a few extra months making it more, shall we say, Pontiac-y? One way the team Firebird was going to differentiate from the Camaro was the trim option.
And there are 5 distinctive versions.
While the Camaro offered great engine choices, its interior options were bare bones. It was considered a people's car, a Volkswagen, if you will, and was always going to be more widely available, even though Pontiac offered more upmarket interior features and options. More of those in a second. With every bit and bob in order, the car was ready to hit the market. It just needed a name. Pontiac chose to honor the GM Firebirds, a series of jet-inspired concept cars from the 50s that inspired the development of XP833. Pontiac finally had a new horse in the race, but how would it compare to its rival, the Mustang, or even to its sister, the Camaro? Would it be the favorite daughter, or would it be the one that nobody likes? You know, every family has one sibling that everybody likes, and then one who has to live in the basement. In 1967, the first year it went on sale, the Firebird came in 5, count them, 5 different level trim packages, something the marketing team called the Magnificent 5. There's the base 6-cylinder, the Sprint with the hotted up 6, the 326 high output, but the top option that year was the Firebird 400 option, which included functional hood scoops, dual exhaust, stiffer suspension, better transmission, a chrome air cleaner, and the belle of the ball, that sweet honking boy of a V8, the 400 cubic inch monster capable of 325 horsepower. Base price of the Firebird was $2,666 in 1967, which is about 22 grand today. A great value, but for an extra $274, you could add the Firebird 400 package, which is about $2,200 today. Not bad. Now, even though this was the most powerful Firebird you could buy that first year, it was still 50 horsepower short of its sister, the junior Corvette, the Camaro, right? One weird thing about this era at GM was that they had a rule that horsepower couldn't exceed 1 horsepower per 10 pounds of car weight, meaning If you had a 3,000 pound car, you couldn't make more than 300 horsepower. So the Firebird with the 400 V8 weighed about 3,250 pounds, which meant that they had to restrict it to 325 horsepower. That is math. By using a throttle linkage that only allowed it to open to 90% of its potential, which seems like a thing you could undo pretty quickly. Customers who bought this package quickly found out just a few minutes of tinkering, the pins in the linkage could be bent a little bit to open more, allowing for more power, baby. The general public loved the Firebird. Even though to most of them, it was just a Camaro with a hat and a mustache. It cost slightly more than the Camaro, but the features, guys, the features made it all worthwhile. Optional. I'm talking optional Burlwood push button radio, all right? A center console, okay? Rally wheels, a premium steering wheel, soft ray glass, which is basically sunglasses for a car, and beautiful little badass cute Firebird emblems all over the place. Even though the Firebird sold, 82,000 cars in the first year compared to 220,000 Camaros and 472,000 Mustangs, it was a success and people took to it. But why, James? Why is that a success? That's only 17% of what the Mustang did. I say, good job. You did that math really fast. Your tutor's working. I'm proud of you. Well, the truth is GM never wanted the Firebird to compete with the Mustang. That was the Camaro's job. The upmarket Firebird was in direct competition with the Mercury Cougar, which was basically a fancier Mustang. And GM's intent for their two pony cars was to flood the market and take down both the Mustang and the Cougar. So as far as they were concerned, GM succeeded. But despite the positive reaction from car enthusiasts, John DeLorean wanted to make the Firebird even better and even more different than the Camaro. But how was he gonna do it? 1969 was the last year of the first gen Firebird, and this is when it really started coming into its own. This was the year that the Trans Am debuted. John DeLorean was constantly trying to push the envelope with every car he worked on, and whether his bosses at GM liked his ideas or not, it didn't matter, because the public, the people, loved the cars that he made. It was like he could see into the future. And as the tumultuous 60s transitioned into a new decade, pop culture was changing as well, and DeLorean was ready to capitalize on it, okay? The 1969 Firebird got an extensive appearance upgrade. The whole front end was redesigned, as well as the instrument panel and steering wheel. A new high-end trim option was added as well. The Trans Am package could be added for $1,800, 7,600 bones in today's money, which gave you the most powerful V8, the 400 high output, plus a shaker hood, frickin' rear spoiler, and upgraded suspension and brakes. The Trans Am package also had a bunch of decals and functional ducts behind the front wheels. This thing looked mean. All right, they made 697 Trans Ams in 1969, nice. Painted exclusively in cameo white with Tyrol blue racing stripes. It was the most expensive Pontiac option of the time, and it cemented the badge as the trim king of the GM family. The next generation of Firebird would carry the torch, and in the process create one of the most iconic cars of all time. Every great musical artist has a definitive album that you can point to and be like, this is what that person sounds like. For the Firebird, that's the second generation. Debuting halfway through 1970 because of machining issues, this next gen Firebird moved away from the Coke bottle styling into something with more swoops, more angles. And Pontiac really doubled down on having more options than the Camaro. New for this gen was the Esprit and formula trims. The differences were minor, like heavier sway bars and different spring rates, so I'm not gonna get bogged down into all the details when I can just talk about what I really want to talk about. The most significant model, maybe, of this entire era. The Trans Am now came with the new Ram Air 4 V8, 4 in Roman numerals like a rocket ship, tuned to make 345 horsepower. This engine could only be ordered with the Trans Am package. Only a year later, Pontiac offered an even bigger honker, a 455 cubic inch legendary V8. This is peak muscle car era right here, baby. A 7.5 liter V8 that put out 335 horsepower, which is not a lot for that displacement, but it was back then. And it added to the mystique and reputation of the Trans Am. And thanks to Pontiac's avant-garde styling that changed seemingly every year, the Firebird was becoming a favorite of the muscle car community. Another thing that really helped its popularity was a little thing called Burt Reynolds. You ever heard of it? He's the mustache guy with the hats on. Now, even if you don't know who Burt Reynolds is, you are probably familiar with Smokey and the Bandit if you like car movies. It's up there on the list of the best car movies ever made.
I want to jump something!
Well, jump me.
And one reason is the hero car is one of the coolest cars out of any movie ever. This 1977 Trans Am drove into the hearts of millions of Americans with its pinstriping, gold snowflake wheels, giant hood scoop, and fender flares. Burt Reynolds and his dark steed ripped past the Jakes with their skinny tires and dumb hats and presented a lifestyle that many didn't realize they wanted, be an outlaw. The Firebird was successful before, but after Smokey and the Bandit debuted, sales of Firebird skyrocketed from 110,000 cars sold in 1976 to 211 in 1979. That's almost double. No one could have predicted the massive success the movie would have brought Pontiac. This generation lasted another couple years, but because of the gas crisis and its increasingly restrictive environmental regulations, which I actually agree with, it just kind of kept getting worse, just like all other American cars, right? And Pontiac was forced to finally ditch their big block engines. Third gen Firebird debuted in 1982, and by this time, American cars across the board just kind of were dookie. I'll say it. They were dookie. Cover your ears, kids. Straight up doo-doo. Instead of performance, the main focus was fuel efficiency. Gas cost so much freaking money. This was the first gen that the Firebird got a 4-cylinder option, and there was a rumor that they were considering making it front-wheel drive. The redesign brought the Firebird into the 80s, but this gen is considered one of the worst in all respects. Power, performance, styling, everything. I guess if you had to pick the coolest model from this generation, Trans Am GTA, which had a interesting notchback, reminiscent of a Ferrari 288 GTO. The most power this generation saw came from a 3.8 liter turbocharged Buick V6 from the GNX, which produced 250 horsepower. That sounds pretty rad, actually. I would drive that. It would be a few more years until the Firebird made the type of power that it did before the gas crisis. The fourth generation Firebird came out in 1993 at a time when V8s were finally getting powerful again.
The muscle car lives.
The SVT Cobra and Lightning, the 454 SS all came out around this time, and Pontiac couldn't have timed it better. Alongside the fourth gen Camaro, AKA the Catfish, the new design was futuristic for the time, featuring a sleek and aerodynamic profile that breathed fresh breath in the car after years of staleness, which is the opposite of freshness. One of the most over-the-top, ridiculous versions of this generation was the Firehawk. This was an option that you could get the Formula or Trans Am trim and featured a twin inlet hood, a big ol' wang, 17-inch wheels, and just too many random body and ducts, flare. Like, there's a lot going on here. And to add to it, you can get it in a T-top. You wanted to put your hat on a hat on a hat. Now, the cool thing about this trim, as well as other Trans Am trims, was that you could get it with the LS1 V8 from the Corvette, detuned a bit, of course, to make 330 horsepower. Now, this was the first time in 2 decades that horsepower figures were back to a respectable number for a muscle car. My friend Josh's mom in high school had one of these. And it was really fun. 2002 was the last year that they made the Firebird, and to celebrate the 35-year run that spanned 4 generations, they made a special collector's edition Trans Am, available in either convertible or T-top. It only came in yellow, black stripes on the side. It looks like Hulk Hogan. It's truly it's the worst way to commemorate the legacy of what was once such a cool car. It really is not good looking. It looks like a ski-doo. Unfortunately, Pontiac was shut down during the financial crisis of 2008. Thanks, Adam McKay. So it doesn't look like we're gonna see a new Firebird ever again, but if you really want one, GM has licensed the name Firebird to a company that takes new Camaros, puts a bunch of Firebird stuff on it, badges, and paints the golden Firebird logo on your hood. It's also got some pretty cool throwback looking wheels. I don't know, it's cool, but maybe it's best if we just respect the past and move on.
Check out Donut's new badass We Buy Junk Cars shirt. Get it in this nice black and yellow, or this luxurious white and warm red. Plus, if you order right now, we're gonna include these. Limited edition We Buy Junk Cars business cards, so you can help spread the word. Junk. And unlike these junk cars, this shirt is quality that lasts at the low price of $29.98, which is much cheaper than buying one of these used junk cars. Yeah, that's a great piece of junk. So go to donutmedia.com to pick up your junk car shirt today. This thing is sick.
Thank you so much for watching this video and everything else on Donut. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything. Hit that like button. Really helps us out in the old algorithm. I'm really excited about our merch program. We're just dropping new stuff almost every week. Go to donutmedia.com to check that out. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, @James Pumphrey, and TikTok, the Kentucky Cobra. I love you.